We're currently living in Portugal, and we've been here as long as we lived in Singapore, which got us a little nostalgic and reflecting on the things that we love and miss about Singapore. Here are those things, plus at the end we'll share some stuff that we hate about Singapore and if we'd actually move back. A major consideration of people when they move, and especially for my wife, whenever we talk about living in a place, is safety. And Singapore ranks among the safest countries in the world, but it differs from Portugal because Portugal is also one of the highest rated countries in terms of safety.
In the sense that you can walk around and you don't have to worry about who's behind you, who's in front of you, who's lurking or anything like that, whether it's daytime or nighttime. So I really love that you have a very safe country.
Singapore's safety is global in the sense that we're talking about petty crimes. You don't have to fear that. You don't have to fear break-ins, which I think in other places that we've lived, maybe like break-ins in cars or home theft is a little higher, whereas maybe street violence isn't. Like, you don't get any of that in Singapore.
I know it's small, it's a little easier to maybe manage and monitor, and some people will say, oh, it's a bit like Big Brother because all the cameras. But honestly, if you're not doing anything wrong, then you welcome that type of safety and that type of people or government watching you. You don't have to worry about stuff. You could have money in your back pocket, you could have your phone in your back pocket, you don't have to worry about it being taken. If you drop something, generally you've got a person who's chasing after you and they're saying, hey, you dropped this, instead of like stealing it. Or you could save a seat on the metro or a table with your purse or your bag. So I really do love that overall Singapore is an extremely safe country.
And now that we have a kid, I think it would be very easy to raise our daughter Valencia in a place like Singapore because of the safety. You have different people from different backgrounds, different religions that all live in harmony with one another. So safety in Singapore is absolutely top, and I really miss it.
As a woman walking around, especially now with a child, it's really comforting to know that I can just go anywhere with her or on my own and not have to worry about the surroundings around me. And actually, there was one time we were out and there was a person who, it was nighttime, and there was a person who was walking around with a $20 bill, and he was asking people, did you drop this? Did you drop this? So it would have been very easy to just maybe look around and say, oh, no one's here, so I'll just take it. But he was literally going around asking people at nighttime in the dark if someone dropped it.
I think anytime you make a move, thing that you need to consider is how well you jive with the local cuisine and also what's on offer in that country. And Singapore does not disappoint when it comes to the local cuisine. And it also doesn't disappoint when it comes to international cuisine. Like, literally, we never ran out of options of food to get.
Now, of course, you might think that Singapore, being a small country, doesn't have great food, but that would be so wrong of you. They do have their own chicken and rice, which is a bit of a humble type dish, but amazing flavors, even though it's very simple. You can get it at a hawker, and it's very inexpensive, I guess you could say.
Now, we did have our little local places that we like to go, and on our most recent visit back to Singapore, we did hit up a few of those places because there were some dishes, for example, the mixed rice dish, that I really miss. In fact, the gravy or the sauce that they put on the food is so comforting to me. I didn't grow up in that culture, but there was something about the flavors that it felt like comfort food to me, so I missed that.
Because of their mix of nationalities who are there, who have been there for quite a while, you have a very good mix of the Malay food, Indonesian food, you've got Little India, you have Chinatown. So yes, this is going to be more of the Asian flair and the Asian flavors, but because you have people also who have moved there from Australia, the US, Canada, you get that cuisine as well.
The cool thing about Singapore is you can have hawker food, which will be the cheaper dishes that will cost, a couple bucks. Okay, now the prices might be like $3, $4, $5. Whereas when we were living there, it was like $2, but it'd be like $3, $4, $5. And then you can go sky's the limit, Michelin star restaurants, celebrity chefs, and be spending a whole lot of money, which we rarely did. But the food offering was amazing. Missed those monster shakes you could get as well.
But overall, the food in Singapore is amazing. And okay, you can spend a lot of money on it, or you could go to hawkers and not spend as much, but still get these amazing flavors. I always like going with friends to the hawker centers. Okay, you're sitting outside, so maybe it's a little hot, but you can get a nice cool drink. You can get some really inexpensive food and just have a good time. You can hear the buzz of the Singaporeans, of the different nationalities in the hawker centers, just having a good time and having some great food.
Something I think that we have taken for granted whenever we've moved around different places has been the organization of a place, the bureaucracy of a place, and the really good organization that Singapore has as a culture kind of permeates everything. So I'm talking about the government being efficient in terms of processes like visa process or your work permit. That's simple to get. There's a very clear path to get that, whereas some of the other countries that we've lived in, it's been higher bureaucratic need for. Taxes. Doing taxes in Singapore is so much more straightforward than other places that we've lived, especially the US. You know, we can go onto a website in Singapore and basically punch in our gross income, and then we'll get a reading that is almost to the penny accurate to what we'll end up owing whenever we do indeed file our taxes.
Okay, so some people might think that it looks a little too clean or manicured, I guess, in Singapore, but I really love the fact that it's very organized. You can track the metro or buses on your phone. It's very clean, the routes that you go, and so overall everything is very organized. Again, I guess it might look a little sterile, but I like that about it actually.
On a smaller scale, or at least on the society scale, not talking about bureaucratic things, is how people line up. Like, they're so organized. They get in a line, they queue for stuff, whether it be a hawker or whether it be for the metro. You know, people queue up and they respect the fact that there's this organization, there's this structure. I personally think it gives a bit of comfort knowing that, like, all right, if I stand in this line, then at the end of this line, this positive thing that I want is gonna happen. So I really dug that.
So it feels like everything is efficiently run, from the government and those different government offices all the way down to something smaller, you know, within the schools or even at the malls. So overall, it's a very organized country, and I think that makes it a lot easier to adapt once you move there, because you feel like, I know where to go, I know what to do, and you can just take the proper paperwork, for example, and get it done without feeling stressed or being like, I don't know what it's going to be like today on the day with the person.
Something else I have to highlight when talking about how organized Singapore is how easy it was to start a business there, especially with the help of Awesome, a company that helps entrepreneurs incorporate and run their business in Singapore. My friend and business partner James had someone recommend Awesome to us as we started our coffee import business in 2019. Awesome was instrumental in this process, using both clever chatbots to share and file important documents, and we got to chat with live reps to do things that needed a little human touch. With Awesome, incorporating your business in Singapore is a breeze. As a top global destination for entrepreneurs, Singapore offers great tax benefits, and Awesome makes it even better by handling the entire process remotely and paper-free. With Awesome's expert accountants and intuitive software, you can leave your financial admin, taxes, bookkeeping, and accounting to them. Everything happens in one platform, tracking invoices, monitoring cash flow, and getting real-time insights into your business, all while enjoying Singapore's business-friendly tax environment. Join over 15,000 entrepreneurs who are running their businesses better with Awesome. Incorporate your Singapore company today and let Awesome do the heavy lifting. Click the link in the description section for 16% off any Awesome services and get started today. Easily one of the things that I didn't think I would miss, that I actually do miss, is the balance in the predictability of the weather, and especially the sunrise and sunset. Basically every day of the year, you knew that the sun was gonna rise between like 7:15 and 7:30, and it was also gonna set between 7:15 and 7:30. There would be a little variance as the year goes on and as the seasons change, although there's not really any seasons in Singapore.
The only thing that you really have to make sure you always have with you is an umbrella, because it will rain. And of course there's monsoon season, but generally you can expect rain. So I would always have an umbrella in my purse, because at any time you could get some showers.
But you kind of knew, and it was predictable, and your body, or at least my body, got into this like really good rhythm of being there.
I do like the predictability of it being warm. You never have to look outside to see what other people are wearing. You don't even have to check your weather app actually to see what the weather is. You know it's going to be warm, it's going to be humid, but you can definitely wear sandals, and girls can wear skirts and short sleeve shirts. So I do like that the weather is quite predictable.
The other thing is that you don't have snow, you don't have these cold fronts that can move in. You don't actually have, in my opinion, like super hot days. The humidity aside, like the heat is bearable in my opinion. One thing that I think a lot of people underrate when they move to a country, and I feel like we definitely underrated this moving back to Europe, even though we knew it from the first time that we lived in Spain, is that in different places around the world, the quality of housing and how they're built and how they're designed plays a huge role in how comfortable you feel.
If you look at the buildings, you will see how beautiful they are. So not only are they built really well and they make sense when you get into the apartments, but if you just look from the outside, you'll see that they add these little touches that make it amazing. So for example, you might have a wall that has all of these flowers and leaves. So here you are in the middle of a city, and it feels like a city and it's gridded out like a city, but then you have this beautiful apartment building that has these flowers and leaves. And so it just makes it very homey. The quality is really good, as in the materials, but then also the way that it's designed is amazing too.
And I really miss the modernity of Singapore and the houses. And we fortunately have moved into a place here in Portugal now where we have that. But the other places that we've lived in, the quality of build has been lower than we expect. Most all of the places that we stepped into in Singapore, they're not just new builds, but even some of the older construction from a couple decades ago is still top. Aesthetically, super pleasing. Design, also really pleasing. But you don't have problems that come with poor construction. One of the most fascinating things for us as we lived in Singapore was our ability to travel to other Southeast Asian countries, and then also just other parts of the world, really.
This is an amazing area for you to be able to travel to. Not only is Changi Airport really, really nice, the airport itself, but it services a lot of the different countries around you. It's close to Malaysia, it's close to Indonesia. I mean, you can even drive into Malaysia. And then you can also easily get to Australia, some of these smaller islands that can be tricky to get to. Singapore actually will have flights to them.
Getting back to Europe, we had great flights, but yeah, getting to travel in Southeast Asia was incredible. Visiting places like the Philippines and Thailand, and going to places maybe parts unknown like Laos, which is one of our favorite countries in the world to visit. Such an interesting place. I think that Singapore's geographic location, it's really, really hard to beat.
So as far as the location in Southeast Asia, it's really, really great for travel opportunities. Not only do you have the flights and then of course driving across into Malaysia, but you also have ferries that can get you into Indonesia. So you have a lot of variety that can get you around to the different countries around Singapore.
You've got KL, which is a good airport, maybe Hong Kong, which is a good central airport, but Changi Airport is the best. So being in Singapore, where our home airport is Changi, and being able to go to other countries, usually for pretty cheap, was phenomenal. I miss that. Although we do get cheap flights here in Portugal, being in Europe. One of the most underrated things, easily underrated things, when it comes to living abroad and moving abroad is how well you can integrate into your new place. And we found it much easier to integrate into Singapore because of the community that we found. We found a great mix between Singaporeans and then also expats. The expats that we had were mainly from our work. So for us, being able to connect with people that we work with and that we share culture with was really nice. But then also being able to connect with people in the church that we were attending, and then outside of that, making like some business contacts with people and special interest stuff, like through Arsenal, our favorite soccer team that we support. Making those types of connections was incredible.
The great thing is, since so many people, mainly everyone, speaks English, it's actually a lot easier to break into the Singaporean community. Now, it might take a little bit of time because maybe they're not necessarily looking for new friends, but once you do, you can easily interact with them. So there's not a language barrier.
Singaporeans, I find, are really warm, although other people find them cold. I find them to be really open, to be really honest, to be genuine people.
So it's easy to build a community, and the Singaporeans are so nice, family-oriented, and very willing to meet you at different places, have you in their home, go to your home, meet at a park. And so it's really easy to build a community there, which I really like.
Of course, Singaporeans come, like, they kind of have different cultural backgrounds, but I found there is some national identity when it comes to Singaporeans from an outsider's perspective, like what it is to be Singaporean, whether they're Chinese, Malay, Tamil, Indian, whatever. You still feel like there's a cultural thread that runs. And I found them to be awesome people, and I still count many of them as good friends that I want to stay in touch with for the rest of my life.
Okay, one of the first things that we have to mention that we really hate about Singapore is the housing costs.
Absolutely soul crushing.
Yeah, it's expensive for something small. I mean, obviously Singapore is a small country, so everything is really built up. You have these beautiful apartments that we did mention, but they're just really expensive for the size that you get.
Yeah, we paid about 1,500 Singaporean dollars for a broom closet.
Yeah, and that was a long time ago. I think it'd be really hard to find something like that now.
When we were just there, actually, I looked at the prices for units in our old apartment complex, and they were already up to like 2,500.
Yeah.
And when I say a broom closet, I mean that if you don't consider the size of the bomb shelter, because that's which are required, and that's not usually factored into your square meters. We had 38 square meters, so like 400 feet, 410, 415. I mean, it's basically like living in a tiny home.
Right. It was a 1-bedroom, and this was before we had our daughter, so it was just the two of us. But housing prices are just really, really high. So much so that I have a friend who decided to move in with another friend just to keep costs down because living by herself was just so expensive. So that's an unfortunate thing that you have to think about.
And many people might wonder why we're not screaming about cost in general, but I would say housing costs are something that you can't really escape. Like, we never found a way to escape that. But there are some other ways to escape some of the other high prices of things.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you like to drink, there are ways to keep those costs down, because drinking alcohol in Singapore can be very expensive. If you want to get bottles of liquor, then it's probably best to do it at duty free.
Yep.
Because buying it like on the high street will be double, maybe even triple what it costs to do duty free.
Yep, so it can be expensive. Moving on to the next one is the location, but we said that that was a good thing that we love, but the problem with the location would be it's really far from the east coast of the US, which is where we're from.
Yeah, it makes it really difficult for family to come visit us. It's not so bad on us and our bodies getting back to the east coast of the US. No, but it's like, it's not as bad as it is for our parents, for example.
Right.
It's really challenging, or even grandparents. That's out of the question.
Right, so it really does take you about 24 hours when you leave Singapore to actually get back to the east coast of the US. So it can be really hard. There are some direct flights from Singapore to California, but they're pretty pricey is the problem. So the route that you generally would go would be maybe through Japan, but it's really far from the east coast of the US. So that is something that we didn't like so much.
Yep, and something that got highlighted last time we were there that we didn't maybe think about so much when we lived there the first go around, but it became very apparent when we were there on this most recent visit, is it is sticky. The humidity is so high. I actually don't sweat a lot. Kalie's the sweater.
I do. I am a sweater.
For me, I could kind of mentally deal with it, but I know for you, it's something that you absolutely hated.
Yeah, I mean, I also have very fine hair, so the problem is if I'm sweating too much, it starts to look a little like wet and greasy, so that can happen very quickly. So being outside it's just so humid, you sweat a lot. So you have to make sure, you wear the appropriate clothes so you can't see, but then you also get inside frequently for the air conditioning. So it's a very humid country.
So with those three nasty things kind of out of the way and kind of counterbalancing the things that we love about Singapore, the real question is, could we move back to Singapore? We're in a different phase of life. We're doing different jobs than we did when we were in Singapore. We were teachers when we were there. But could you actually move back to Singapore?
Yes, I could. I love Singapore, and although I sweat there a lot, I'll stay inside a little more. It's far from the U.S., but I think that we would just be the ones going back to visit parents and grandparents a little more than obviously them coming to us. But I would say yes, I could definitely move back to Singapore. And you?
I will say yes and say that not right now.
Okay.
I think that in a few years' time, 5, 10, maybe 15 years' time, when life looks a little different for us, maybe we'll change careers again. Who knows? It could be a possibility. Singapore is a phenomenal place, and I would highly recommend it.
It's awesome to visit and live, and actually, if you want to start a business, it's the place to go. So don't forget to click the link below for OSOM to get your discount, and check out more about Singapore right here. Now, let's get moving.
Bye.